So, welcome back, everybody. And what we're going to do this last 30 minutes is we're going to do some examples from the Chapter 2 skills review. So, if you were able to look at some of those problems, that's great. If I get to something and you have a question, be sure and raise your hand or turn on your mic and talk. So, the first thing we're going to talk about, and there's a few problems in this, I may not get to everything. So we'll do, if I don't get to everything, we'll do questions on this on Monday. But I'm going to try to get through as much as I can. The first thing, this would be the very first thing that you have to be able to do in the Chapter 2 skills review, is multiplying and dividing signed numbers. For example, just as a reminder, when you multiply a positive times a negative, you get negative. When you multiply a negative times a negative, you get a positive. These are the same rules for dividing. If I had a positive divided by a negative, I get a negative. If I have a negative divided by a negative, I get a positive. So it's similar rules. So it's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday, that when you have different signs, you get a negative. And when you multiply or divide numbers with the same signs, you get a positive. Okay. And this is like problems. This is number 1 and 2. Are like this. Okay. Second thing. Raise your hand if you remember this. Do you remember? Some people call it PEMDAS. Do you remember that? Okay. So remember, when there's more than one operation, you do, the order that you do this in is you do parentheses, then exponents, then this is multiply and divide from left to right. And then the last thing you do is add and subtract from left to right. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Yeah? Okay. Then let's do an example. So I'm going to write that over here. To refer to. So going through this list, notice we have division, minus, times, and plus. We don't have any parentheses, no parentheses. And we don't have any exponents. But we do have multiplication and division. So we need to do the multiplication and division. It's not multiplication then division, it's either one from left to right. So that means going from left to right, we're going to do this division, and then we're going to do this multiplication. So multiplication and division are equal, we do them left to right. Sorry. I have to remove the cat. That's Pixie. I have to get rid of her. Okay. So, what did I do with my black pen? Sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay, so when we do this, the 12 divided by 6 gives me 2. We're going to bring that minus down. 9 times 7 is 63. And then we're going to bring that down. Plus 5. So we did this. Check. Now we're ready to add and subtract from left to right. Left to right. So that means we're going to do this first. We're going to go from left to right. You can do that in your calculator. 2 minus 63 is going to be negative 61. Then I'll bring that down. And then do that in your calculator, and you would get negative 56. And that would be your answer. Okay, I have an example 2. And I have this one on a document. So hold on while I'm going to share that document with you. And it may look kind of small. And I know this one looks pretty complicated, but what you're going to do is you're going to do these multiplications. Sorry. You're going to do all of these multiplications here. So that would be 24 plus 56 plus negative 40. And you can see why we worked on those double signs yesterday. Plus 8 times 13, that's going to be negative 104. I'm doing this in my head, guys, so if I do one of these wrong, please interrupt me. Plus 88 plus 8 times 16. Sorry, can't do that one in my head. $128 divided by, and then on the bottom, you can go ahead and add those 3 numbers on the bottom. I'm going to do that in a different color, okay? 3 plus 9 plus 7, that's 19. Okay, can somebody turn on their mic and let me know if you're seeing the work that I'm showing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, remember we looked at problems like this Monday, and we added all the positives and then we added all the negatives. Hopefully you guys see that. So, of course, this one's going to be negative and that one's going to be negative because the signs are different. See how the signs are different here. So that's going to be negative. Signs are different. That's going to be negative. And you can add all those. You can just punch them in your calculator. And that gives me a top number of 152 over 19 equals 8. So that would have been the number I put in the blank. So that is problem, you can see on this that that's problem 4 in your chapter 2 skills review. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. And we're going to go on to a new topic. The next topic is reducing fractions. And I talked about this last time, but I'm going to go over another example today. So an example is 16 over 68. Now what you need to do to reduce a fraction is to divide the top and bottom by a common factor. But let's say that you don't know something that goes evenly into all of these. So I'm going to show you another method. So I'm going to rewrite both of numbers factored. So that 16 would be, I could call that 4 times 4. And I could also call that 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. See how I just rewrote it and I broke it all the way down. For 68, I could do, okay, well that's 2 times 34. So that's 2 times 2 times 17. Do you see there's the 34? And then what I can do is cancel out common factors. So I'm dividing by the common factor. And then I just remultiply what's left. So on top I have 4 left. And on the bottom I have 17 left. And that's another way you can reduce fractions. So this is another method. Okay. The next topic is multiplying and dividing fractions. Now, the general rule for multiplying fractions is this. You just multiply across. But if you look on here, that would give me big numbers. So I'm going to do this a different way. That top would give me 5 times 8, which would be 40. That's true. But I'm not going to make it 40. I'm going to break it down because 28 times 15, well, I don't even know what that is. So 28 times 15 is 420. So 40 over 420. So I could do this. And then I could reduce that. And sometimes that's okay. Or here's another method you could try. On the 5, I could do 5 times, and on the 8, I could do 2 times 2 times 2, which is the same thing as 8. And then I could break that. Do you see this is kind of like what I was doing when I was reducing? 28 would be 4 times 7, and 15 would be 3 times 5. There's 15. And then I could cancel common factors. You see a similar thing like I did when I was reducing. So do you see that 4? Well, this is a 4 here. This is a 4. I'm going to cancel those. One on top, one on bottom. There's a 5 and there's a 5. There's a 5. There's a 5. Cancel those. What's left? On the top, all that's left is a 2. On the bottom, we have this left. 7 times 3, which is 21. Now, I would have gotten the same thing if I had done this. 5 times 8 and 28 times 15. I could have done it this way. And then I could have reduced it. This one's not too hard to reduce because you can divide by 10. Which would give you 4 over 42. And then you could divide by 2, which would give you 2 over 21. The same answer. Okay, let's do a division problem. Doesn't erase very good. Sorry about that. So dividing, if you do A over B and divide by C over D, what you have to do is you have to flip the second one and multiply. So, for example, if we have 12 over 9 divided by 4 over 5, that becomes 12 over 9. The division changes to times, and you flip the second one. Now from there, you can either multiply across, or you can do the method that I just showed you. Now I notice at 12, it divides by 4, so I might want to rewrite that 12. I might rewrite that 12 as 4 times 3. And then I have times 5. That's 12. And you could rewrite the 9 if you wanted to, but since 9 is, well, let's go ahead and do that. That 9 would be 3 times 3 times 4. And I'm not going to break the 4 down because I already have a 4 that matches. And then I'm going to cancel out common factors. So that 4 and that 4. this 3 and this 3. And then I find what's left. On top, there's a 5. On the bottom, there's a 3. And that's our answer. Okay. Let's talk about adding fractions. Let's see how I'm doing on time. Let's see. Okay. I forget what number I'm on. Roman numeral something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think. Yeah, thanks. I lost track. Okay, so adding fractions. Now, to add fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So this would be adding or subtracting, actually. So if you have the same denominator, like say you had A over B plus C over B. Do you see how I have the same denominator? Then you keep the common denominator. I've run out of room. Sorry about that. Hopefully everybody can see that. Let me turn this just a bit. And you add the numerators, A plus C. So let's do an example. These don't have the same denominator. So we can't add them. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to build these up to get a common denominator. So we're going to find the least common denominator. There's different ways for doing this, but I'm going to show you one way that's pretty easy. So do multiples of 12. That's 12, 24, 36, 48. For 18, I have 18. 18 times 2 is 36. Whoops. That's your LCD. So I'm going to change these both to 36. So on this one was 12 times 3. So this was multiplied by 3. So you have to multiply the top of this by 3. That gives me a new denominator of 21. On the 18, to get 18 turned into a 36, that was 18 times 2. Times 2. So do you see on this first fraction, I multiplied the top and bottom by 3, gave me 21 over 36. On the second fraction, I multiplied the top and bottom by 2, gave me 10 over 36. Now I have the same denominator. So I can use this rule. I keep the common denominator. And I add those two numbers, 21 plus 10. And we would reduce if we could. This won't reduce. 31 is prime. So this is done. Okay, we're going to get into something totally different next. I'll have a few minutes. But does anybody have a question about what I've done so far with the fractions? It's mainly been fractions that we've talked about and order of operations. Okay. I'm going to jump to a different kind of problem. Summation notation. This is called sigma, and it means it's actually a capital sigma. It means to add. So that's what that means. And I'm going to show you a problem where we use that. So I'm going to share another problem with you. So when this one says evaluate this right here, when it says evaluate the sum of x, that means add up the x's. So when we find this, you see they've given us the x's there. These are the x's. So what we're going to do this in your calculator. So everybody do this. Everybody try to add up those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to check roll again. And then you can tell me what you got for an answer in just a minute. I'm going to check roll one more time. And then after that, I know it's 12:30, so you guys can go after I check roll, unless you have a question or want to see me do more examples. So let's see. When I call your name, raise your hand and leave it up. Tori, are you there? Your hand is up. Can you put it down and put it back up for me? Okay. You can raise it again. I already counted you present. Okay, thanks, Tori. Ariana. Raise your hand and leave it up. Yes? Thank you. Cecil, raise your hand. Chloe, I don't think is on this now. Diamond. Jacob. Kayla Hernandez. Kendra. Kendra. Christina. Layla. Mia. Natalie. Natalie. Okay, I see some people are getting some answers. We'll see if those are right. Stephanie Garza. Temperance. Vanessa. Natalie, were you there? Did you raise your hand? Perfect. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Everybody can put their hand down now. So I saw that somebody said, let's see what you guys got for an answer. Oh, good. Looks like you got the same answer. Mia and Kendra both got -0.7. How many of you agree with that? Okay, so let's assume that that's the right answer. Good job. And I'm going to have to put it on there. So hold on a second, because I shared a document. So great. So that's all I have time for today, guys. That's all I'm going to have time for today. But in my math lab, if you remember that there are helps that you can access. So if you get stuck on a problem, say you're doing a problem, remember over here there will be a thing, there will be a help, call it a help hamburger. So click on that to get help. And I didn't go over everything that's in the chapter 2. There were still a few things. And so I want you to bring your questions on Monday from the chapter 2 skills review examples and from the homework on chapter 1. Does anybody have a question before you go? Yeah, you can do it either way. It can be either a -0.7 or both are correct. Okay? Does anybody else have a question? You're welcome. Bye, Mia. So, yes, that's true. The first one does. It's like a, yeah, it's like an invisible. Invisible. Yeah. Be sure and do your homework, all your homework. You've got a weekend. Try to get all of it done. Okay, so